Okay, so this is, so first of all, just like this at the beginning, who's is this? This is our first jam, once again. Okay, so start this off. What did you think of this?
It's very good.
Very good? So like, what did you learn from the experience so far?
It's good to work with different people. If it were me alone, I wouldn't have got this far. So especially different artists and a different program, that helps a lot. And yeah, again, the game is not completely playable yet, so that's still out there. We need to work on it, but it's good.
Yes, now I know you were a C++ programmer, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, how did you kind of gel with your other teammates? I mean, like, how did you figure out the roles? How'd that work?
We had one artist designer, Kristen. He pretty much took care of every single need we had, and images and all that. And for code, Dave took care of the back end, and I was mainly working on the front end stuff. So it was just an arbitrary role assignment. We just stick to it till the end. So
Cool. Awesome. So who was the other person? Your first jam? Yeah. So what do you think?
Well, coming from not much experience in any kind of, it's really my first kind of step into bigger game industry, kind of. I mean, I've been learning C# with an uncle of mine who made games, mobile games in college, back when mobile games were on flip phones, like Bejeweled with like buttons and stuff. Yeah. So he made like there's actually a semi-popular Bejeweled clone called Jewel Thief, and so he's now a business programmer, so he's really good at C#. So June 2011, he offered to start teaching me, so I've been learning there. So every week, like every Friday, I've been going there, just kind of basic, step by step. And after a while, we started making a game. But when I found out about this, I'm like, this is such a huge step forward. Like just after all this practice that I've had, just kind of over time, this is a real nice application of everything that I've learned. Especially because like all of us were really good at C#, like in our group. So we were all able to focus more on. So I was able to actually help. I knew what I was doing. I had like a job to do that I could actually do. And with him, being really familiar with X and A, so being exposed to new things that I didn't know yet, and then coming up with new ideas and being able to like work and be able to create a plan and work together and kind of being in almost a producer position, like because when we were at the beginning and we stood in like here's the programmers, here's the designers, I thought I'd kind of back off on the programming side because they got more experience than I do. So being a designer, in my head would be more like a producer kind of position where you're more like facilitating between, like you got the artists, you got the guys who are doing input, different kinds of programmers, and it was cool to be in like this position, this whole experience. Yeah, it's really cool.
How about you, since you're talking about the X and A, and it's your first one?
First time here, I had a good time. It was nice to be able to actually just challenge myself and force myself to stay up making games. It was great. I have to say one of the few things was definitely the value of commenting code. And, because I went in and built the engine like just at the get-go, and I didn't realize like everything was intuitive to me. And when I finally had it off to these guys who were like, "Josh, what's going on?" I'm like, "All right." So definitely have fun. Definitely have new people to talk to and hang out with, and just like, hey, you guys want to make a game? Like, let's get an SVM, let's set some Skype up, and let's make this happen. So I'm glad I'm able to take that out of this.
Awesome. Now I know this is all your first time as well. Now, weren't you kind of like the lead for this particular one, weren't you? Or? Yeah. So, I mean, I remember the conversation I was having with you, I think like yesterday or something, I don't know, everything's a blur, but you're basically like, you were describing to me your whole process, and like you guys filled up almost all the whiteboards in there.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys were just doing milestones and all that kind of stuff. I mean, like, how did you guys come to that conclusion to organize things in that particular way?
Good question. I guess.
Here. You remember my notebook? I had the plan, like, the step-by-step process that really helps. It's kind of a universal, like any moment in time when you're programming. Like step one, like what are your variables? Step two, your input and output. Step three, like tackling the problem. Steps like look at your pseudocode, like write out words and then plug in real numbers, and then work with that, outside of coding, and so plug it in, just try something and see if it works, and if it doesn't, change it in pseudocode, and then once you figure out how it works, then you can just type it in and how it kind of does it.
Well, how about like more so from like a management standpoint, since all of you were programmers?
Yeah.
There you go.
My experience with this, as actually a lot of fun. I liked the energy that everybody had, and everybody was really invested in what they were working on. My main focus was to find people's strengths and see how we could leverage that and use that in the time allotted. Also, really just kind of learning what to do. Really, I've never done this jam type thing before, so this was a lot of fun just trying to like experiment, see how things work out. I did have a couple of management ideas prior from like past experience, and part of it was trying to keep it simple, which is the hardest thing to do. And we found out,
You wrote "Kiss" on the wall.
Great idea. And I think, especially being young, that's just natural. And so, one of the things I like to do was to have an ideas board, so that way we can say, put those ideas aside, like have the ideas, but then have them off the side. It's like, okay, we're going to weed those out and try to focus on getting to the end, getting something quickly. So, but as managing, I think like just leveraging, letting people do what they're best on. He was the architect. I can really see that when I first started talking. It was like, all right, we got this. And X and A, we can do this. I get this feature. And I'm like, awesome. This is the boss man right here. He's going to architect it, get us to the finish line. So, and then around here, he's got a lot of high energy. He's learning the language, and so I'm like, shoot, I'll work with him with that. So we went through and solved problems step by step. Took up on his energy, and it just fed me to keep going. And so that was a lot of fun.
It was really cool, the synergy there. Like a lot of times we'd finish each other's sentences and like be in the same thought process and like jinx each other, say the same thing at the same time and like reach the same conclusion.
So for me, really, it was to find and work with people's best talents and just kind of like. He showed a video yesterday about what producers are playing their role, and part of it's not necessarily knowing all of it. It's just seeing where two people work good together and where the connections need to be made. So with like our art, Josh helped actually like get criteria of what we needed to have made up and done up, so that way it fit into the art engine, since he was architecting how animation would be.
I need to give you guys my eHarmony shirt.
Yeah.
So,
so it's just kind of like working with what people's good strengths are, and kind of flow with that. So, and then still just try to weed out stuff like, oh, it's a great idea, let's write it down, but then let's try to get this feature.
Yeah, having those priorities, like we had our to-do list, like these need to be done right away, and then if we have time or if like the situation calls for it, then we can figure out which of these optional things that we want to implement, which ones we can put in.
So I find this is really interesting. Now, this is your first time doing this kind of stuff. You guys are like on the mark. I mean, that's like not normal. So I mean, there are a lot of you here who are kind of like seasoned jammers, if you will, who've done a lot of these already. And I'm kind of curious to hear how this experience was for you guys versus typical like 6-hour ones that we would usually do. So kind of George, I'm kind of actually curious with you, because your team had a lot of like art people and programmers and stuff like that. So based off your experience from before, how did it go for this?
Well, it's funny because I actually only have experience doing 7-hour game jams. Like I haven't done Moondar, I haven't done like other game jams. So it was kind of funny because I felt even being in the same space as last time, like almost primed to think of it in terms of in the same terms as before. So consequently, yesterday I think as the first milestone we were kind of setting was for 8 o'clock, just to kind of mimic that. And I realized as we were getting there, we were actually kind of running out of things to maybe even implement, and hadn't really led with too much clarity in terms of what kind of mechanics we might want to add later after we got to that point. So it was really strange. And then like Winston and I, we were the ones who stayed here at night, and like realizing that, I rallied him up, and we started. Well, other than swinging a wooden sword around, we on the floor. Some people saw we actually went through the mechanics and tried to figure out pare things down and try to get something interesting in there. Unfortunately, it didn't make it into the game, And maybe if we like instead of pretending like it was a mini 7-hour jam, done things a little bit differently, like maybe spent 2 hours, just time boxed on, making imagining a fun game and actually really putting that in there first, and then rolling it out later, instead of just kind of starting a like a frenzy of, let's get this implemented before time runs out. It might have ended up better in the end. So that was interesting.
So, I know, Devin, I know you've done a lot of like Ludum Dare and like the much longer ones and stuff. And, George was just saying that, he was so used to doing the smaller ones that they kind of almost got lost when it came to the bigger ones. I mean, since you've kind of done the bigger ones already, like what kind of things or, have you learned from those type of experience that you can kind of share or talk about?
I think it was interesting though, like him coming from the approach of the 7 hours, is good because like it's easy to still be like, oh, I have an extra day now, and just scope up, it's too easy to do that, and like even with my game, I still made it more. It's still more complicated than it really needs to be. I didn't get a lot of time to do a lot of polishing because it's too hard too hard to veto your own ideas, and unless you've done a few of the really shorter ones, I think that actually helps in the longer ones. I think I got a lot more done in this one because I've done a bunch of the shorter ones up to this one. It's been a while since I've done 40-hour one. So I actually spent less time because I went home like at a decent time and actually got to sleep on it. Because I was used to doing small ones. I was like, whatever, I think I can manage this. And pretty much it was good because I also was thinking in terms of what can I cut and what's priority. And like as I'm going to bed at night, like last night, I'm like, okay, cool, what are my priorities for tomorrow? What can I realistically do? What can I cut if I don't have enough time? And thinking in those kind of terms, I think is having done the small ones is a lot more helpful because then it does help to have a few extra features. In the situation George was in where you're like trying to come up with new mechanics, but that's still a good problem to have. Like, I mean, I'd rather have to come up with new stuff and be like, well, I got to cut half the game and now it's not actually fun anymore. So you got to kind of try and find that middle ground, like have some ideas for where you want to go, but don't make them critical.
That's a very good point, actually. So, Ray, I know you guys were teamed up together, programmer and designer. I remember you kind of came to me that you were kind of saying that, once you told him what to do, you were just kind of there at that point. So, I mean, how did you guys kind of balance that out? I mean, were you just bored the entire time, or like what was your dialogue like?
Oh, never. When he got sick of me, I'd run around and bug everybody else. And I was trying to help find the assets on the iPad. Thankfully, since my computer died upon arrival, I had the iPad to work with, so that helped out a lot. Yay, Apple. So I did the best I could to just support him. Didn't get to any massages or shoulder rubs or moral support or any of that. But it worked out really well, I think. I just stared at him and made him nervous, and he kept going.
I guess
he did a great job. We actually, it's a little bit better than what we saw because when it compiled, it didn't compile everything like it was supposed to. So, yeah.
Cool. Going pretty good?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm really interested to hear, when at the time, at the very beginning, we broke everyone up and then you guys, what was your process when it came to choosing who was going to be a part of your teams? So, I know you guys are all programmers, XNA and all that, C# and stuff like that, but I mean, guys, were you just like immediately drawn to each other? Did you first talk to other people? Like, what was your guys' process for creating your teams? Anyone want to share? Yes?
I kind of went straight for him because it sounded like he had a very solid idea, and I was kind of looking for a challenge, not some pie in the sky type thing. I want to do an MMO or something like that. But something that's realistic, but it may be using mechanics that I've never experimented with before to give me a challenge in having to tackle things a different way. So that's kind of how I looked at it. Was I'd have a stable spot to work from instead of just kind of unsure pathway as to develop from as it's created along the way type scenario.
Must have worked because he only got about an hour's sleep.
Seriously, he was in there like sleep on.
Yeah.
So I mean, he also brings up a good point too. Like he was looking for a particular thing or a challenge. Start good.
Yeah. So it wasn't. Obviously, my only experience was C#, so that was kind of the first foremost thing in my mind. So when they went by each person, that was one thing I had. you know, look forward to. But then afterwards, you know, just kind of talking with them, it was more of a personality thing. Like, would I be able to work with them easy enough? Like